Hello and welcome to Food, Nutrition, and Wellness. On this edition, we're going to be talking about Green Santa. So stay tuned, we'll be right back. Thanks for hanging in with us. Duane Rigsby, Dan Remley here. We're going to be talking, or Dan's mainly going to be chatting about Green Santa. Now, Dan, how are we going to be? Santa Claus is red. Where did this green thing come from here? Now, well, I understand all this new recycling stuff.
Yeah, we want Santa to be a little bit more sustainable.
Yeah,
so we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
And so we're going to talk about just tips for recycling, reusing, and sort of lighting up our footprint during the holiday season.
Well, that's a good idea because I'm sure our footprint is big.
We wanted Santa to be green so that we don't have garbage floating around the Pacific Ocean and in the Paint Creek when we're canoeing and that type of thing.
Okay. So. Yeah. All right. Well, you've got some slides we're going to go to. Is that our first plan?
Well, first of all, I dug these out of my. These are some of my lights that I pulled out for this season, and as you can see, probably about half don't work. So I had to buy pretty much every strand. Almost every strand of light that I pulled out this year
had some problems.
Had problems.
Yeah.
And so you either go through bulb by bulb and you try to replace the bulbs, or you can try and replace the fuses, which are pretty challenging too.
Yep.
But then I got thinking, I don't really want this to wind up in the landfill, but I did find out that Lowe's and Chillicothe does recycle, so I can take these bags. So I was glad to hear that. But I pretty much bought brand new lights.
Oh, well.
I just don't know if they're not as durable as they used to be, but seems like
agreed.
More so. Every time I pull out Christmas lights, I have to replace them. So anyway, that's a sign of the times, I guess.
That's true. That's true. But you've probably had these quite a while, but
I think so. But I had a lot that I just bought last year, and they still aren't working. So
well, that's the new economy. Buy one, throw away.
Yeah, that's
unfortunate. That's what we have to figure out.
And there's a consequence to that. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So, these are my blue lights here. So.
Okay. All right. So from blue lights to a green Santa.
Yeah. So this is our outline today. We're going to talk a little bit about the problem of waste in America, and kind of talk a little bit about how waste is a real problem in the holidays. Because during the holidays we throw away a lot more. We'll talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
And then finally talk about ways to reduce waste during the holidays. So how do we reduce our footprint a little bit during the holiday season? So I don't know if you knew this, the average American produces over 4.6 pounds of waste every day.
Every day?
Every day. So if you think we have 330 million Americans, and then you multiply that by 365 days in a year, that adds up to quite a
lot of stuff.
Quite a bit of trash. And so it actually equates to about 250 million tons of trash that's produced every year. Now the good news is about a third of this is recycled.
Well,
so we're getting better.
Plus side, yeah.
We're getting better. It's I don't know if you've found this. I mean, you live in Jackson. I live in Chillicothe. Chillicothe does offer recycling, so you can put your recycles on the curb. But I don't live the city limit, so I have to drive my recycles into the city where I have to drop it off at a bin, and often the bin is full. So it's kind of an inconvenience. In some of these communities. Yeah. What's it like in your community? Do you have recycling?
Well, we don't have it in our community. I live outside of town as you do, so it doesn't. They don't put anything close by. So if you want to recycle, you have to make an effort, a big effort.
It's a little bit harder in the rural areas to recycle.
Yeah. And we have a lot of rural areas too. So,
we do, especially down here.
And absolutely.
So it does impact our health and our quality of life, and it gets into our watershed, so it winds up on beaches. It's consumed by sea life. Eventually goes into our food supply. If fish eat these, what happens in the oceans is these plastic bags and plastic whatnots get into the ocean, and they break down with the surf and the turf and the sun, and they turn into these microplastics, which the fish eat, and we eat the fish. So it winds up.
So we're kind of recycling our own stuff, and maybe.
Well, sadly, and that's detrimental to our health too. So we're finding it more. I mean, if you go to a national park, you're more likely to see trash than maybe you did 20 years ago because we're producing so much more trash. Yeah. So unfortunately, we see it in national parks and scenic rivers in our communities. So it seems like it's getting worse and worse every year, and that's a quality of life issue.
Sure. Yeah.
And I don't know if you knew this. It takes a long time for trash to break down in a landfill.
Yeah,
it takes like 70 years or so. I mean, it doesn't because you don't. I mean, they're very. It's a real science. I mean, you put something in your trash, and you think the Grumpke takes it away. You never out of sight, out of mind. What happens to it? Well, it winds up in a landfill. Right. And it takes years and years to decompose, and so once a landfill shuts down, the landfill has to be maintained for over 30 years.
Wow, 30 years.
Over 30 years, and because waste can get into water supplies, so they have to monitor that, the runoff and all that. So. It's a big problem. And as I said too, that's if you go to even a desert island, you go to French Polynesia, and you'll see I've never been to French Polynesia, but this is what other people have told me. You see trash on beaches, and just
floating in,
covered beaches covered with trash. There is kind of an eddy in the middle of the. It's like a vortex in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. It's 3 times the size of France.
3 times, and it's just floating trash.
Just floating. It's just like a trash island. Really? In fact, there was like a swimmer who he set all these long distance swimming records. He was going to swim across that trash sea. Oh my God! So he was documenting what he saw. Yeah. So it's sad, but it's a product of our times, as you said. We're kind of a throwaway society, right?
We have gotten to be a throwaway society.
But I think people are becoming more aware of this problem, and they want to make a difference, especially young people. Young people are, this is their future. And they don't want to live in a world where they're consuming plastic and drowning in plastic and trash. So I think that we need to be good stewards of what we consume and how we think about what we use and what we give away. Yeah. Right. So let's talk some more about that. And so this is kind of the consequences of our throwaway society. And so how can we cut back? How can we reduce the amount of waste that we produce? Waste does increase about 75% during the holidays, and so major sources of holiday waste include like wrapping paper, cards that we throw away, gift packaging. If you've ever given a young child a gift, just think about all the packaging that's
all
used.
The extra stuff in it is
electronics
crazy anymore. Yeah.
So, all that winds up in a landfill. Again, our lights here, broken lights, things like that. So many gifts use a lot of resources also. If you think about, I had heard when a smartphone is produced, it's I don't know how much, lots and lots of water goes into water and resources, rare earth minerals and that type of thing.
To make anywhere to make from making the glass to the back to the inside. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of like you said, resources, water. Let alone electricity and these other things.
A lot of actually manufacturing plants are located near large water bodies because it takes a lot of water resources to produce like TVs and things like that. So, we in the Midwest probably do benefit from that economy, but there's a consequence to that. Yeah. So when you're giving somebody a TV or a smartphone, it does take a lot of resources to produce those products.
Right.
So, yeah, this is something to think about. And then, once you give a new, you get a new smartphone, and you get a new TV, what happens to the old TV?
Yeah, what do you do to the old ones?
So it winds up somewhere.
Yeah. Now, I have noticed that, now I don't know where they go, I haven't really investigated this, but I have seen in some of the, I'll call them big box stores now, locally, there is a machine that will, if you put in an old cell phone, it'll give you money.
Oh,
It's a recycle your phones.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and so I don't know where they go to, and I'm sure some business is doing that. But it's actually the box is green. I'll take a picture of it and show it to you next time. But you put in the name of the phone and stuff, and throw it in the box, and it spits out some cash to you.
Very nice.
And it doesn't matter if it works or if it's broken or anything. The screen can be busted on it, whatever.
Yeah. That's great. I think we're going to see more and more because people are becoming more aware and concerned about this problem. So.
Yeah, right.
And you can always look up, get online and look up, where can I recycle batteries or lights or Christmas lights, and hopefully you'll get some answers. But that's one of the good things about electronics too, is it does make us more aware of where we can take things. And that
I
type
think
of thing.
batteries is a huge issue.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that would be that's a big problem.
So these are some green gift ideas for the holidays, and secondhand gifts. There's secondhand stores out there. Things like picture frames, for example. Right. Anything in good condition can be given away, and it's important. I mean, to give away a secondhand gift is important because otherwise it's going to be wasted, right? Or going to landfill.
You're just eventually going to throw it away.
Yeah. So that's so think about secondhand gifts, minimally packaged gifts and toys and things like that. So when you're shopping for toys, especially young kids, I mean, you can give secondhand toys away; they'll never know it.
Right.
And they can be washed and that type of thing.
Yeah, as long as I agree.
So durable gifts, and that gets into this idea of, so if you're going to buy a TV, and actually my wife and I were just talking about vacuum cleaner. So do we get a more expensive vacuum cleaner, or do we get just a cheap thing? Yeah. I said, we might as well get the more expensive one, or at least, because the expensive one probably is going to be more durable. It's probably going to last a little bit longer. Maybe not.
So.
Do your homework on that. But so, kind of the advice would be get the higher quality vacuum cleaner rather than the cheap one, or a TV or that type of thing. That's just going to wear out in a year and break down, and then you'll end up pitching it. Right. So get something that's durable. Do your homework on that. Non-physical gifts, and this is like things like that would involve just giving your time. So like it could be like babysitting for somebody. And my colleague sent me a list of clutter-free gifts. I think this was online, but it could be like an experience. Like it could be tickets to the Blue Jackets game, or it could be a restaurant gift card, or tickets for a hot air balloon ride or something like that. My in-laws got or class. I got a scuba diving class last year, which is a wonderful gift. It's expensive, but it's something that I can use. It's not going to be cluttering up my house. Like an art, maybe painting or an art class. Yeah.
Like one of these little one-dayers that maybe one of your local town has. Right. And maybe some kind of experience there.
Chillicothe, for example, has a pottery place that you can go and.
My local town in Portsmouth has something like that as well.
Right.
And I think, Dan, you're onto something I think really good. I think would I go to my little local town and go get into local coffee shop? Probably not, because it's out of my way.
Right.
But if I got a gift card or if I got something from that, I may go.
Sure. Yeah, and that supports the local economy.
Yeah, exactly.
It could be like a spin class or something. It's like a gym membership too. Just doing things for people, like babysitting, or offering to wash their car, or clean up their yard, or change their oil. If I'm not very mechanical, but some people are, right? Or changing brakes. Memberships to the zoo, like the Columbus Zoo.
That would be a good one too.
That's always, especially for families with kids.
That would be a good one.
And also, you know, it's always nice to get gifts you can eat. You know, like fruit baskets or coffee, that type of thing. Wine, you know. So these are just some non-clutter-free gift ideas that
I like them. I really do. I think those are good alternative gifts that we don't really think of, you know, a lot of times. But now I think we've started to. I think we've started to do more gift cards and things like that. And I don't know about your family, but in my family, it's like they have everything already.
Right.
So here's some cash, or here's a gift card, or here's a food certificate or whatever to something. Just go get you something. You know, kind of thing.
And you can make your own gifts too.
Oh yeah.
So now it's tough with kids. They kind of expect the shiny new ball, you know,
Oh yeah.
and the nice.
And I think that's great.
The new,
you know,
so you have to think about the gift itself and whether or not it'll be received well. And if you're going to give a sock puppet to a kid who's, you know, used to the brand new iPhone, you know.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
But be creative, and there's lots of things you can do. You can make gifts and that type of thing. You can give there's a lot of charitable donations you can give in somebody's name. There's a lot. OSU has a lot of endowments that people can contribute to. So
absolutely,
something to think about. Waste reducing gifts. This would be like a coffee mug that that's probably what I should use, because I'm pretty bad. I need to be more mindful about my styrofoam
cup. Yeah.
So maybe a nice gift for maybe the Green Santa could give me a
coffee cup, a new coffee cup,
a nice coffee cup there.
Yeah. Yep.
So
could be.
Yeah, there's lots of gifts like that actually reduce the waste. In the picture there is some, you know, you can put out some beans. That there's kits you can like a soup kit or something like that you can give away, and you can use a mason jar like that. So
I like those.
Lots of great ideas, and you can go online too and look up green gifts and get lots of ideas online too. So we're just trying to give you some ideas. Some other green ideas include recycling lights. We talked about that, and reusing wrapping paper. Now we have just a kind of a bunch of these bags in my garage that we use every year, and these
use all kinds of bags.
You know, and you can just kind of use these, recycle these, use them every year. Or some people use cloth. You know, they just kind of they reuse the cloth. If you want to get really green, I mean, you could argue that the cloth is made with these dyes that eventually get into the water supply, that type of thing. So you can look for, you know, the dye that's green. But so yeah, recycle as much as you can, and that's pretty much you know, the big idea anyway behind the green Santa. So
interesting. I know it's recycling has its pushes at times. I think. I think we are. You know, once in a while, certain groups get together and say, "Oh, you know, we need to try to promote more recycling and things." And I think it does make, hopefully during holidays, that these groups will take a little more effort and maybe push a little harder and become that recycling city, if you would, or town. We have a lot of times to where we start recycling and things, and they just disappear. So we have to keep pushing that somehow, and how we do that I don't know, but maybe if you keep talking to your local town, you know, the commissioners and all these different things, maybe they can help make this make your town a little better, to be a little greener town, I should say, with that, and even promoting recycling as I wouldn't say it's like a gift of recycling, but a town could certainly put in a box or two just for the holidays, and say that, you know, here's you know, help recycle, make it a green city, if you would. I think that would be a great idea, if you know, just for the holiday, even doing something like that.
Yeah, it's. I think some communities are a little bit more progressive. I always wonder. I always wonder about the science of recycling, how
Well, it's true.
how it all works, and I guess they have these magnets now that once these big recycling centers, your trash goes on a conveyor belt, and these magnets they run these magnets over, and it picks up. These magnets are able to separate out the different recycles,
metals or
plastics, but it does get kind of confusing because some plastics can be recycled, others can't.
Yeah, that is true. I understand that some are.
So you have to do your best, and of course when you do recycle, you don't want to throw away a pizza box that has a bunch of grease on it, because that's harder for. I mean, the recycling plant has to spend resources to actually remove that.
Right.
And so it kind of defeats the whole purpose of sustainability, right?
That's true. I even know one family, and they've kind of enlightened me, and actually I started doing it some, is to help with not necessarily recycling in our mind, but to use less wrapping paper and such. Is years ago I watched this family during Christmas time, none of their gifts were wrapped. They only had a bow on them, or something like that, and that was the whole principle behind it. Was if it was unwrapped and there was only a bow, that morning it truly did come from Santa Claus, and only wrapped gifts.
A green Santa.
Yeah, only wrapped gifts came from, your family or your mom and dad or something like that. But the gifts that were under the tree that were unwrapped with only a bow on it or something truly did come from Santa Claus.
I remember growing up, I did not grow in a real sustainable family.
Yeah.
I think that was just typical of the times, but
Yeah.
the only thing we would be worried about is burning the wrapping paper because of the fumes and the toxins and that were in the wrapping paper. But
Sure.
so I think there was a lot of waste in the Remley household, probably.
Everybody's different, I guess.
But that was the times, and I think people are coming around to realize that, we've got to be careful because this is our, I mean, I want my kids, my grandkids to inherit the world that I inherited too. So, and we have more people and more waste and that type of thing. So, and kind of getting into nutrition too. I was just on a webinar yesterday and they were talking about eating sustainably too. And so that's another thing to think about during the holidays. And this is sort of a controversial field a little bit, but we do know for sure that we can all cut back on meat, and that's not just for the environment, but for health too. So maybe during the holidays, having a meatless meal of some sort.
Really? Okay. Never thought about that.
It's just a way to think about, okay, how can I live more sustainably?
Interesting. Now,
avoiding those processed foods take a lot more resources out of the environment to produce. So, cooking things from scratch and trying to, even at the grocery store, trying to buy foods that are maybe in bulk or that aren't wrapped in things. That's really, really hard.
It is. It is really a difficult thing to do, to buy these things that are not packaged so much more.
Right.
And I think we're buying the product for more of the packaging than what's actually in it.
Right.
That's a cool box, I'm going to buy it, regardless of what it tastes like. It may be terrible, but it's cool packaging. So.
On our gift exchange yesterday, somebody tried to steal the bag. Right?
They wanted the bag or the box or things like that. Yeah, they could care less what was in it.
Well, they didn't realize that something had been taken out of the bag.
Oh, something was already out of the bag. Nice. Well, this has been a great little chat with turning Santa Claus into a green Santa Claus, and talking about recycling everything from partial lights.
I was to say, ironically, where we're seeing climate change, we're seeing, the canary in the mine for climate change is on the North Pole. That's where they're having this significant the warming, and that's where Santa lives, right? So right now he's basically going to be
sweating pretty soon.
Yeah, his workshop's going to be like on a housebot or something, right?
Yeah.
Because
that
of
could be
the climate change.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So Santa he's really very much interested in having us be more green, I think, so that he doesn't have to live on a houseboat in the Arctic.
I agree. Well, everyone, help us keep Santa Claus chilled down and keep him with lots of snow and all this good stuff. Try to recycle as much as you can. Remember, less paper might be the best. Wrap it up in a bow sometimes. Recycle your bags if you can. Even some boxes, especially if you open up a couple of days ahead of time. If you can reuse that box or something like that, that'd be great as well. One last thing we can't forget about is, especially with this show about healthy eating and stuff, is eating for the holidays. So, Dan, what's some quick tips that we can do for the holidays about eating? What can we try to reduce or watch, or maybe just a little bit less of?
Well, I would say for things like cookies and cakes and chips and all those candies, and really pay attention to serving sizes, and so know what an actual serving is, read the food label. I think it's especially hard if you're at a potluck or something like that, or a Christmas dinner where everybody brings a dish. You want to try a little bit of everything, and that can be pretty detrimental. And so, overeating, you think about overeating, and we talk about ways that we can reduce our footprint. That's one thing that we can do is be mindful of those serving sizes. And to look at the food labels and see, hey, 2 cookies is a serving. And I shouldn't have 5 servings of cookies. Right. And that's something that we do need to be very, very mindful of during the holidays, and especially if you have a disease or a condition like diabetes or hypertension. You want to be very careful about your numbers too. Speaking of diabetes, we have an online class called Dining with Diabetes Beyond the Kitchen, and so if you do have diabetes, you want to learn more about it, check with your local extension office to see if the class is offered, or you can get online and take the class too. And this will be especially helpful for you during the holidays too, as you're trying to manage your blood sugars, or even if you have hypertension and you're trying to reduce your sodium. You can take this class and get really good tips and that type of thing. So that's our little plug for our online program. We use a Canvas platform now. We changed platforms, and it's easy to use, easy to sign up. It's free. So it's sponsored by your local Ohio State University Extension offices. So everyone, check out your local Extension office, and again, happy holidays.